Well, hopefully everybody had a good Christmas. Well, I say everybody. Hopefully the scumbags didn't have. Hopefully their conscience was pricking them, but I doubt it very much. But I want to reassure, as we're coming up to the anniversary of the Kingsmill massacre, I want to reassure the families that we are still working very hard to get to the bottom of who and what happened. Sorry, or who was involved in what happened that night. Uh, we believe, and indeed we have had barristers, solicitors, people who are involved in conflict resolution, some of the best experts from around the world looking at some of the information we have, and they're convinced that we have enough information and evidence to initiate a number of arrests, and in the new year we will be doing that. Just to give you a quick example of what we're talking about, a mile and a half away from where the Kingsmill was carried out, the Kingsmill massacre, they tried to kill a few soldiers a number of months later. McCreesh, the hunger striker, and another by Quinn and another by McGuinness was arrested at the scene with the weapons still on them, and another one who got away but was wounded. We have now got the statements where Quinn and McCreesh name McParland as the man who got away. The gun that he dropped was the gun that was used to go around and shoot the men in the back of the head while they lay dying on the road. To back that up, McParland was admitted to a hospital in the south of Ireland later on that day with gunshot wounds. So the man was admitted with gunshot wounds on the same day that he was seen dropping a weapon that was used to shoot my father, was used to shoot people in Tullyvallen, was also used to carry out one of the most brutal acts in the history of this country. And he's never been arrested. Why? We're sick to the back teeth of listening to this issue of the Finucane family and what happened Finucane. The head of the IRA in the south clearly stated that Pat Finucane was heavily involved with the IRA. As we know, his two brothers were certainly very heavily involved with the IRA, and indeed had been wanted for quite a while, and I think they ended up doing time for murder and attempted murder. But Finucane played with fire and he got burnt. And they talk about there was collusion in his killing. Well, personally I feel that men like that there should have been taken out a long time before they actually were, because he was responsible for turning an organisation around that was financially broke in the early 80s. Financially broke, which meant they were not able to carry out the amount of operations that they did. According to the head of the IRA in the south, not my words, his words, Pat Finucane turned that around in the south of Ireland, where Gerry Adams was present and a number of other senior IRA men. So if you want inquiries, well, let's have them. Let's ask the question why McParland was able to walk out of a hospital. What was going on here? We have the Irish government who supplied a safe haven to the IRA for 40 odd years. They changed the extradition treaty in 1965 to 66 so that it was nearly impossible to extradite a member of the IRA for political offences back to the United Kingdom. Why? Why did they change that law in 65 to 66? Who changed it? George Hockey changed it. The man actually accused of gun running. The training camps that were set up, who set them up? The Irish government. The camps were manned by who? By Irish Army. They trained IRA men in these camps how to make bombs, how to carry out shootings. In other words, they trained them how to murder the citizens of the United Kingdom. Let them be the innocent civilians right down to the innocent policemen and soldiers or UDR men who were on patrol. The 500 weapons that came from Dublin, the army barracks, and was given to the IRA in Donegal and were then transported across to different parts of Northern Ireland. Who gave the order for that? Again, it came from the top, from the Irish government. So if the Finucanes want an inquiry, let's have one. Let's have it into the fact of that the Irish government sat back and allowed our community to be butchered in the border areas and did nothing whatsoever about it. You know, I'm not condoning murder here, but I'm also not going to condemn the murder of IRA men. If they hadn't been involved in what they were involved in, perhaps they mightn't have got what they got. That doesn't mean I condone it, but I certainly will not condemn it, because for every IRA man that was shot, lives were saved. And it may be harsh, and a lot of people will say that's a disgrace to say that, but it's a reality. If more IRA men had been taken out, a lot more innocent Protestants, and indeed innocent Roman Catholics. People seem to forget about the 500 Roman Catholics murdered by the IRA. Why were they murdered? Why did the IRA murder 500 Roman Catholics? They don't seem to be asked for an inquiry into that. So, when you want to talk about inquiries, we'll give you inquiries, but you don't really want inquiries. You want to tell your own wee sick version of the poor wee Irishman and how the British made you suffer. Well, that story no longer wishes. That story is no longer the only story that's being told. The facts is now starting to come out that some of these poor wee paddies that they talk about that was attacked was actually out trying to murder people, or planning murder, or were involved in trying to overthrow a state. Sinn Féin, the IRA, want to claim they were fighting a war, but whenever the war was taken to their door, they got down and cried like little children, because they could give it, but they certainly could not take it. Whereas the Protestant people, and indeed some of the Catholic people who served in the security forces, who seem to be overlooked in this whole situation. If you want to go out and murder somebody, don't come whinging about it whenever it is taken back to your door. You've got what you deserved, as far as a lot of the IRA men went. And I want to make this clear for coming into 2012. We're not going away. We want to move on, and we want to make sure our communities move on, but we want to make sure our dead is remembered and their loved ones is looked after. And irrespective of how many threats, how much pressure is put on, it will make no difference. We will not go away until this situation is dealt with, because we are sick to our back teeth listening to the whinging and the crying of these Republicans, who at one stage want to call it a war and stand and chant and cheer about it, and in the next sentence they're lying crying with their crocodile tears about the poor innocent Republican who was shot. Personally, over this last 30 years, 40 years, there's no such thing as a poor innocent Republican. Anybody who supports the use of violence is as guilty as the man that pulls the trigger, because without your support they wouldn't have been able to do what they did. So I'm now telling you, I know it's unusual for somebody from the Protestant community to stand up and say things that I say, but I'm telling you what a lot of people think. We want to move on. We want the resources we need to move on. Yous are pumping it into the IRA, hand over fist, and indeed into certain sections of the loyalist paramilitaries. But unfortunately not into the ones that actually can help move the peace on in a genuine way. And to these people who keep saying, oh, you're only preaching hatred, sit up and listen to what is going on. Sit up and listen to what the IRA are trying to justify to our communities, because you may have no guts in you, but the people I know from the unionist community, and indeed the ordinary Dacian Roman Catholics, do not want scum like this to be running the country. But with that said, we believe that we can help things to move on, but only if it's done properly and in the right manner, not by dishonouring our dead, or indeed, as we always seem to forget, our injured. We talk about the soldiers coming back from Iraq and Afghan. Them men and women would put the IRA to shame. The very thought of even trying to put the Republican movement into the same category as them people is just unbelievable. And some of them people are Roman Catholics that are out serving in Afghan and Iraq, and they're not getting the credit they deserve for the job that they're doing, because people are too afraid that they'll be targeted by the Republican propaganda machine or their military machine. A young girl who confronted the smiling assassin, Mr. Blair, went to the graveside of her father there for Christmas, and they scum had sat a dead rat on the headstone. Now the people say that's an awful thing, that's Tara, that shouldn't have happened, but well, if she hadn't done this or done, it shouldn't have happened. And anybody that knows their history knows the meaning of leaving a dead rat, because that used to be how they marked out the Protestant homes for assassination. A rat would have been left on the top of the gatepost or somewhere at the house to mark it. So, it's not just by coincidence that a rat was chosen. They done it to try and send a message. But that young girl doesn't have to speak up, because there's people like myself who will now speak on her behalf, with her approval, of course. But to the men that did that, and one of them was named at that Smithick trial, and Mr. Morgan has been involved with Mitch Blair, we intend to make sure that them people are held accountable for their acts. Again, Mitch Blair, probably British intelligence, but what difference does it make now? So we want to send a message to you: put all the rats you want, because as far as we're concerned, you are all rats, and we're used to looking at you walking on the street, and indeed the one lying on top of the headstone, as far as I'm concerned, is just another dead rat. Only it's a Republican dead rat.